Well, good morning, everybody. It's the post-Blue Super Bowl Monday morning here in the Finger Lakes region. This is the Dog H. Weber with another edition of Weber on Sports. We'll talk about the Super Bowl. But it's Ed Sullivan, and maybe some of my viewers this morning remember Ed Sullivan's show. I used to watch it on Sunday nights, and once in a while he would say, they have a really big show for you tonight. Well, I think we have a really big show for you this morning. Mark Taylor's in the house. He'll be joining us in a couple of minutes, the phenomenal head coach of the Hobart hockey program. He's had nothing but success up there. He's going to talk about his team and about the year he's had. But first, we want to go via phone and talk to an individual who's had quite the run himself with his outstanding team. You know, I have a soft spot in my heart for the Phelps-Clifton Springs area, having been out there many, many times years ago broadcasting basketball and football games for WSFW Radio. Steve Howcroft joins us, the head coach of the Midlakes Screaming Eagle wrestling team. Steve, good morning. Welcome to Weber on Sports.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Steve, love to have you. And by the way, I must tell you, I am very fond of your area. My daughter used to live out in that neck of the woods, so I'm familiar with your program or your school. You know, I pinch myself thinking about basketball and football may get the notoriety because, quote unquote, they're the number one and two sports in a lot of people's opinion. But I've always had a fondness for wrestling because I've always wondered how these young kids battle through tears to get their weights figured out, and the dedication that a wrestler has to put on the mat is second to none. And for your program to go 21-1 a year ago, which is pretty incredible, but then what did you do to back it up? You went 26-0 this year. Talk a little about the feeling out there for that wrestling program that you oversee, and what makes it tick so successfully?
Yeah, like you said, you know, finishing up last season, 21-1, Division II small school champs. We had a good representation at the New York State individual tournament as well, coming home with a state champ and Sean Peacock and a fourth place finish with Tyler Smith. You know, a lot of people are asking, well, what are you going to do next year? How can you top this season? And you know, it's one of those things. You know, you got to go back to work at the end of the season. There, coming home from the state tournament, we knew our team was still going to be pretty strong next year, but we got right back after it. I think we weren't home 2 weeks after the state tournament. Guys are back in the room for open mats, traveling to open tournaments in the off season, putting in a lot of work, and you know, we just. Like I said, throughout the off season, these kids really have trained and prepared for where they are at this point at the end of the season. You know, in the postseason, and to go through this season 26-0, you take it one match at a time. That's what I kept telling the kids all year. You know, you're battling through academics, you know, injuries, and those kind of things. And they had that tough mindset and mentality that they were going to show up for each other every match and be ready to go. And, you know, it's just a great family atmosphere at Midlakes here. All the kids they've been up through our youth program. The majority of the kids on the team, their families have all been close, share rides, going to different tournaments in the off season, taking kids, you know, wherever they need to go. And I think that's really what helped create what we have right now at this point with our wrestling program.
Well, pretty amazing, Steve. Steve Howcroft is joining us via phone this morning, head coach of the Midlakes varsity wrestling team, 21-1 a year ago, 26-0 this year, 47-1. Amazing. Steve, for our viewers and listeners this morning on the Weber Show, explain give us a little rundown on yourself personally. Where'd you come out of? Were you born? How did you end up in Midlakes in your present capacity?
I graduated from Telmac High School. I wrestled, played football, ran track there. It was my junior year. Brian Quick, who's the head coach at Telmac now, came in as an assistant coach to Rod Rodman, who was my head coach. And he was a college wrestler. He was a two-time national champ, three-time All-American. And he came into the district and, coming back, getting in the wrestling room and being around him and having, Coach Rodman, he's kind of that, a great leader, and then having that type of assistant around kind of really motivated me to, be successful at wrestling. And he kind of helped push me. My senior year, he became my head coach. Rodman stepped down, and Quick took over and kind of helped push me and steer me in a direction where I wanted to be. Wanted to go to college, wanted to wrestle, and not only that, but I wanted to show him something that I could be successful at the sport as well. So I went to SUNY Brockport. It was a 4-year varsity letter winner there. Had a successful 4 years up there as an individual and as a team. For those people that don't know, Don Murray's the head coach up there. He's kind of a legend in the sport. Everybody knows him. He pushes you to be the best, walk the line, and do the right things. And I think that really helped guide me, through my coaching. Becoming a coach helped guide me to where I wanted to be. After college, I graduated, did my student teaching. I had a year assistant coaching at Eastridge, and then I got to return home to my alma mater at Pelmac. And assist Brian Quick over at Pelmac for, I believe it was 5 years I was there. He helped show me the ropes of high school wrestling. He's a guy that I looked up to as my coach, and then to be able to go on and come back and assist him and learn how to be successful. He was building a successful program then, and to be a part of that, and that system that he had, I think kind of helped shape my philosophy a little bit more to get me where I am now.
Pretty amazing, yeah.
Coming home and then being there 5 years, and then I was a halftime phys ed teacher in that district, and being there working along the way, this job opened up at Midlakes for a full phys ed position, and applied for it during the summer and was able to thankfully get that job.
It's great.
And walk in here and start teaching and take the JV wrestling job for my first year here under Chris Van Gordon, who's also a former Pelmac graduate, SUNY Brockport wrestler as well.
Wow.
So I've had a great journey being able to be assistants along the way and work with a bunch of top-notch guys that really helped me with my coaching. And after that first year as the JV assistant, Van Gordon stepped down. He felt like I was ready to take over the program, and since then, I've been the head coach for the past, I think I'm going on my 5th year now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I don't think our viewers may not recognize the pain and the suffering and the ability of a wrestler to make weight, to do the things necessary to get ready for their next match. Explain, I guess, in 300 words or less, what it's like to have an athlete that may need to get their weight down or to work on that, and the pain and the suffering that they have to do to work themselves down to that weight. It's not no easy trip to the beach, using a famous cliche.
Right. It takes a special breed for sure. Not everybody can do it. It's definitely one of those physically demanding, mentally, emotional demanding sports. But, like you said, the pain and the suffering and the agony that they go through, you try to teach the kids that, that's just temporary. That's something that you go through. It helps strengthen you. It helps you become a better person. And, when you get your chance to go out there, all that stuff that you went through to get down to weight and all the practicing and all the drills and everything.
Right.
Then you got your 6 minutes on the mat. That's where you can just, that's where it all boils down to, and that's when it comes to that fruition of how hard you work, and that's when when you get your hand raised at the end of the match. That's when you realize it's all worth it.
Well, listen, I know you have the individuals. Before we let you go, why don't you run down the individuals for the respective weight classes that do their thing for Midlakes, and, of course, you need to give some credit to those kids as well. So why don't you run down through the various kids that represent Midlakes in that outstanding program? Yeah,
I'll try to do that. Like I said, we're actually, pretty deep in some of the weight classes.
Sure.
We had a great weekend in the 3B sectional tournament. We won that. And we had a great showing. We had a bunch of kids that won the tournament. I had 9 guys in the finals.
It's awesome.
11 that are going to be moving on to the state qualifier this weekend. But I'll go through my lineup.
Sure.
At 99 pounds, I got 2 brothers, Hammond Reyes, who was an 8th grader, and then Will Reyes, who is a freshman. Both those guys were in the sectional finals this weekend. Hammond, actually, the 8th grader, ended up topping his brother. so he was a sectional champ. At 106 pounds, I have Jason Charlotte, who was also a sectional champ this weekend. 113, Ralph Mateo, who this weekend won sectionals and was named the most outstanding lightweight wrestler of the tournament.
Impressive.
120 pounds, I have Sean Peacock, who was our state champ at 113 pounds last year. 126 pounds, Jared Eldridge, he's a sophomore for us. 132 pounds, another sophomore, Darian Woodard, who was a sectional champ this weekend. 138 pounds, Dylan Forbes, who's a sophomore. 145 pounds, I have an 8th grader, Robert Middlebrook. 152 pounds, Will Bikekirk, who's a junior. 160 pounds, I actually have 2 guys that battle for that spot. Justin Grimes, who's a junior, and Cody Marr, who was a senior for us this year, who took 2nd at the section. 170 pounds, I have a senior, Colin Fox, who also won the sectional tournament this weekend. At 182 pounds, I have Jared Graham, who's a junior, who placed 4th this weekend. At 195 pounds, I have Tyler Smith, who was a sectional champ, and last year 4th place finisher at the New York State tournament. At 220 pounds, Grant Young, who's a sophomore. And 285 pounds, I have Nestor Naranjo, who was a 3rd place finisher this weekend at sectionals.
Well, listen, we know that you got a lot of things going on. We don't want to keep you tied up too much longer, so we really appreciate you taking some time out. As you know, I have some personal friends. I talked about Laura and Mark Cerrone out there. Their son, of course, is an outstanding wrestler for your program, and he's a nice young man. He represents, having known this young man and knowing the parents, I know very well that if Colin represents the program, you're in fine shape. So nothing but the best from FingerLakes1.com and also Weber on Sports, my show. Thank you for spending some time with us. Continued success the rest of the year, Steve, and we'll come back and talk to you in a few weeks.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me on. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Steve. Thank you very much. Steve Howcroft, the head coach of the Midlakes varsity wrestling coach, folks. Outstanding, 47-1 the last 2 years. And, you know, there's a lot of sweat, a lot of dedication. Speaking of sweat and dedication, that just is a perfect run-in to our next guest. And we'll talk to Mark Taylor, the head coach of the Hobart hockey program, coming up. But now let's find out who's the great sponsors of this show that make it all possible. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back, everybody. It's a Dog H. Weber with another edition of Weber on Sports of February the 4th, 2013. Thanks again to Steve Howcroft, who took that call, the Midlakes varsity wrestling coach. We appreciate him taking time out. And, of course, we wish his program the best of success as the year goes on. A young man joining us this morning, Mark Taylor, the Hobart hockey coach. Mark, welcome to the Weber Show. Good to have you alongside.
Thanks for having me here.
Mark, certainly you have a good fan in our buddy Steve Wadhams, who is a big fan of your program, and you have a relationship with Steve Wadhams, so let's get that out of the way. You did some coaching with Steve.
Yeah, we coached together. Certainly have known each other since my time arriving here. He was with the high school program, and we coached together with the midgets, and it was a great experience, and certainly a class guy and a class family.
We talked about his great support for his business to support other causes in a lot of school programs, a lot of sports involvement that he is involved in. I know he's a big hockey fan, and I consider him a good personal friend. Not only is he a sponsor of the show, but also he's a good friend of mine, so we appreciate that tie-in. Mark, let's talk about your personal bio. Tell us, our viewers, a little bit about yourself, where you went to school, how you ended up at Hobart, to your present occupation, how long you've been there.
Well, I've been here 13 seasons, and I grew up in a small town up north, Canton, New York.
Oh, sure.
Played at Canton College, and then played at Elmira College, and then went over to Sweden, played a couple years, and then started my coaching career at Middlebury College, and did that for a year. Then Brown University, University of Vermont, and then a long stint at Cornell University, then another decent stint at UMass Lowell. And then at that point, I had seen enough of the country as an assistant and a recruiter, and I decided it was time to, take everything that I've been stealing from all the head coaches that I worked for, and see if I could make it work for myself. And
you've done very well at it.
Yeah, I'm a good thief.
Now, at Hobart, like a lot of universities, we talked about this before we come on the air. The academic requirements at Hobart are second to none.
Yeah.
They demand excellence in the classroom, and that is something you can't say in all universities for all sports. So, I've always been fascinated. Hobart is on a great run. Hobart has got the William Smith program is second to none in a lot of their sports. The ladies are very competitive in many of their sports. But just off the top of my head, you look at the basketball program at Hobart. You look at the football program, your hockey program, lacrosse. Is just on and on and on. So it's got to make you feel good knowing that you're the head coach of a program that demands excellence in the classroom, or you won't be playing, and to see the success. It's got to be a nice touch.
It is. I mean, I have a saying that you're coming to school to pursue two professional endeavors. One is where you're going to be with your career later on, and that's not just getting an education. That's becoming a better person,
right.
And and making your profile of that education that you receive. So somebody wants to hire you, and the other side of it is 4 years is a long time to elevate your athletic status, and certainly it doesn't have to end at college. You can go on, and whether it's playing in Europe like I did, or going and playing in the minors, and even to the point nowadays that you're seeing more and more Division III athletes make it to the National Hockey League.
Now, what do you, when you have kids enroll at Hobart, join the school, want to play hockey for you, what are you looking for as a coach and your assistant? I want to give credit to the people that help you as well. What do you look into an individual? Do you look at their dedication, their moxie on the ice, obviously their skill sets? Is there certain things that you look for in determining?
There's a lot of things. You really can't, put, if you try and take one thing, I always say the one thing would be I like them.
Right, exactly.
You like what you see. I have a real strong interest in the kids got to have a certain hockey head. And some kids are a lot smarter and craftier than other kids, but there's certain mental makeup. But you have to look at all the pieces. And, it's important for kids to realize you look at some pieces to whittle down the pile. And what I mean by that is, if there's a character flaw, he's out. If there's, an academic maintenance that is related to a character flaw, he's out. And so you're looking for certainly good people with the right focus. And, so some of those kids that, haven't figured out that, being a good citizen, being a good kid, being a good student, what I mean by being a good student, not everybody's going to be an A student.
Right.
And, there could be, a young man that maybe he's a C-plus student that works harder than any A student. Well, to me, he's at the same level or even higher. And, those guys, I've always seen find a way to really achieve later on.
A great story, and maybe you've seen the movie Rudy, of course.
Yeah.
Talks to Notre Dame, a young man who wanted to play football and was scoffed at by the administrators out there. Never gave up. The moral of the story is he never gave up.
Yeah.
He convinced the head coaching team to give him a shot, at least to dress. And, of course, we all know the climatic ending when he got into the game.
Yeah.
Are the kids at Hobart, are there some that you've run across that may not have the skill set or everything you're looking at, but after a while they drive you nuts and they want a shot? Do you ever had a situation like that?
You know what? The days of, the typical, 20 years ago, you'd have, 4+ lines and 6+ defensemen, and that's what the numbers were. And nowadays, you click on rosters, and there's the average number is probably 30. And one of our success stories is a young man by the name of Greg Alberti. His high school coach, Randy Velichek, that played in the National Hockey League, was adamant about that he was a certain level player. Certainly had some of the traits in terms of character and skating, and he was coming from a high school level that isn't a dominant recruiting ground. Greg came here with the only expectation that he would get a fair trial. He left the captain. He played a year in France after at the highest level in France, and now he's doing pretty well for himself in the business world. But there was a young man that came in that was not promised to be on the team. He made the team, and he worked himself up to being a top liner for us, certainly a leader of the team, and playing in the NCAA Final Fours for us, and being one of the best players at that time. So you can do it if you have the right attitude and determination.
Mark Taylor is our special guest here on the Weber on Sports Show on a Monday morning, post Super Bowl. We'll get to those comments in a few minutes. But Mark, you look at your success this year. Obviously, you had a weekend visit with one of your arch rivals. To give us a little rundown on how that turned out.
Well, we split the weekend. Friday night, we won in overtime. It was a great game. Two great teams. Going after it, somebody's going to come up at the short end of the stick, so to speak. Fortunately for us this time, it was us. We had a game like that against Oswego, which was our first loss of the season, where they got the bounce to go there. And then Sunday, another great game. It was like 5 minutes left, and they had one of the they have a young man that's just a great goal scorer. He puck was on his stick at the right place, and we played it the wrong way, and it ended up in the back of our net. And then some of the chances that we had to tie it up. We were hoping to have another comeback like we did Friday night.
Phenomenal.
And it didn't happen. So credit to us. As a coach, you want to put down your best game, and if you're losing overtime games and you're losing, 1-0 games, you got to find a way not to. You got to turn an extra notch. But I'm a big believer in John Wooden and his definition of success. And
I got to say that having never played hockey, of course, I am not coordinated enough to be on skates. Pretty much, I tried to ice skate. My wife's a much better ice skater than I am, but. I don't have the coordination, but I've often amazed. I look at NBA players, and they do kind of slack off when they go back on defense a lot of times. The NBA does. I don't think the college level does as much as the NBA does. But with hockey, it's always amazed me. I mean, fastest show on ice. I mean, these kids, or I use kids, college pros, I mean, they're going a zillion miles an hour, and it just always amazed me, Mark, being a non-hockey player in my lifetime. I've always wondered, my God, the strain on that body, they've got to be in tip-top shape to be able to perform at the highest level. They really got to be, because you're taking a lot of heat with that body.
Yeah, and your body's conditioned. I mean,
Right.
it's there's not too many guys that can start playing hockey when they're 14, 15 and make it their way to college. So most kids have been playing, since they're 6 years old, and your body gets conditioned. It's like every sport. I think you get conditioned to the sport and in the position of it. Certainly nowadays, I mean, the players are so much faster, bigger, stronger, and and then sometimes we're seeing the body, taking a beating from that. You're finding a lot more kids having hip problems at 21. Because of the body's not built for some of the torque it's taking.
Pretty amazing. I don't know, you can't go back as many years as I can because I'm a lot older than you are, but I would tell you that it is pretty amazing to the NHL without the helmets.
Yeah.
Pretty scary. Those puck flying. Pretty scary thought that at that time, that's the way they played the game.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling. You've had a sensational season. You've you're obviously, your record is got to be something you're pretty proud of. As a coach, I know winning is important, but you talk about Hobart, you talk about academics, you talk about giving it your best college effort, no pun indicated. Is that good enough for you when your team has tried their best and come up a goal or two short? Is that something that you can live with?
It is very much good enough for me.
Yeah.
As I said, I heard that saying of wooden self-satisfaction.
Right.
And that's the definition of success. And, you can play great. You can give your best effort. And sometimes, somebody's a little bit better than you. Mm-hmm. Or in our game, certainly in hockey, that black puck can find a way to the back of the net off a shin pad, or, it could just be a bounce. And, you can only, it's a fine line. You have to give your best. At some point, you need to win.
Yeah.
You can play your best and work hard and do all that and be 0-10.
Yeah, right.
But at game 11, the boys need to win to keep that mentality up. But to me, it is. Certainly my feelings for my players, if they've put down an ace and it didn't come our way,
that's right. You can live with that.
I can certainly live with them. Maybe I'm not going to live with myself and think it's something I've got to fix, but I can certainly live with them.
Are you a type of personality that keeps a game in your head for a couple days until you play the next one?
Yes and no. It depends on the game.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. Some games it's and there's some games you hang on to, and others you don't.
Yeah, I was going to ask you also. Coaches have styles. Some coaches have a defensive style. They like to play defense. Some coaches like an all-out offensive effort. What is your forte as far as a head coach?
Well, the privilege I had of working for so many coaches, I don't have a youth hockey coach or a college coach that I played for that I didn't admire.
Mm-hmm.
I was really blessed that way. Having started at Middlebury for Bill Beanie, he sees the game a certain way. Then I went with Bobby Gaudette, who's at Dartmouth now, who's at Brown, and how he forechecked, and his system was a little different. And then on with Mike Gilligan at Vermont, and Brian McCutcheon, who was one of the old Sabre coaches, who's now in Italy coaching his son, so he's having a great experience. But he was at Cornell during my time. And then Tim Whitehead, who's at Maine, I was together with at UMass Lowell. Everybody had a different flavor, but as an assistant, you spend a lot of times looking at tape and learning from each coach. And the one thing that was pretty evident to me, I'm not a real sharp cookie, so I simplify things. It was a passion for offense, but you had to have a commitment to defense. Mm-hmm. And I really feel the game's as simple as winning races and winning battles. And by battles, I mean mental battles and physical battles, and races, first to the puck and so on and so forth. And, for me, the way I want to play is you have to have a commitment to defense, but when you get a chance to have passion for offense, you got to have it.
Oh, I can imagine.
There's certain ways to play that are going to get it done. And, if it's 1-0 you and you've got 30 seconds left and the puck's in your zone, get it out. If it's 5-0 you and you want to see some stuff come out of the kids when they have opportunities to show it, that's how you grow as a player. Mm-hmm. If you stifle that, you'll never reach your highest points.
Mark Taylor's alongside here in the studio. On the couch, as we like to refer to our guests, when we bring him in for the Weber on Sports Show or other shows that Jimmy Senecropi has, various podcasts. We always want our guests to be on the couch and comfortable. The NHL, of course, a strike short. Your comments about that, were you disappointed to see no hockey for a while, or did you think it was about ready? I had a feeling it was going to happen because I had a feeling the last contract didn't go as well, and I knew that the players might play hardball, and I don't know how the contract, I never saw a copy of it yet, but that must have disappointed you because you're obviously a hockey lover.
Yeah, it did. It's like a lot of things out there in the world. You're not in the room behind the closed doors, so you don't really know all the details of it. You got to be careful how you comment, but
sure.
I thought where hockey was, we were making some great strides.
Right.
From a main player in the sports world, and I felt more for the people selling popcorn.
Yeah.
And, the money's a little bit tighter for, and some of the players, I'm sure that they're not making the biggest salaries compared to some other ones. Those guys were going all over the country to keep making money, mm-hmm. And so I wasn't happy that there was a lockout period. You get it done in the off season.
I talked about myself being a Philadelphia Flyer fan, the Broad Street Bully era. How about you for the NHL? Got a favorite team?
You know what? It's funny. I grew up in Canton, so we were 2 hours from Montreal, and that's where my dad would take us to watch a game. So you certainly got a passion for the Montreal Canadiens. But over time has changed. My cousins are from Chicago, so
Blackhawks.
Growing up with Bobby Hall and my professional, I'd probably say at this era, it's I really respected what the Detroit Red Wings organization's about, and watching the culture of the program. I'm a real big believer in the culture of things more than the wins and losses.
You can answer this question since you're close by. You mentioned Montreal. A lot of comments over the years or over the decades. Hockey in Canada, like your right hand, basically a sport that is adored by the majority of Canadians. A true statement. That's what they live for, to watch hockey?
No question.
No question.
No question.
No comparison.
Oh, it's some people will say certainly in the recruiting side of it, and you have to get Canadian kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, U.S. national junior team just won this year. You don't have to just get Canadian kids. You have to get the best players you can. And is there a higher number of players playing hockey in Canada? Yes. It's no different than football programs. I mean, I think Texas is pretty strong in football.
Yeah, right.
So
sure.
It's not what flags so much you're waving over your head as what the strength is in that country or that state with their sport. But certainly the passion for hockey in Canada it's
amazing.
Is great, and it's what I love seeing now. You got U.S. kids going up to Canada to play junior hockey, Canadian kids coming down to the U.S. to play junior hockey, and I think that's a great experience for kids. It just if you're a kid from Waterloo, New York, and you're out playing in British Columbia, Canada,
pretty good experience.
It's a great experience.
By the way, for our viewers and our listeners, Mark Taylor, head hockey, has been kind enough to spend some time with us here on the Weber on Sports Show. Talk a bit about your assistants and people that help you with the program. Certainly you do a lot of work, but I'm sure you must have some help.
I definitely have some help.
Talk about your people that help you out there.
Well, when I started the program, Neil Donovan was an assistant. I was a player for me. He was a captain for me at UMass Lowell, and he had just got done playing in the minors, and he was just a super captain, and I felt he was the right person to bring on board, even though he didn't have the recruiting experience and wasn't even sure if coaching was his calling. He was a great captain, and I needed a great captain. And then after that, Jason Lammers, who's now the assistant at UMass Lowell. He's been the assistant at Anchorage, Princeton, and Colorado College. He started his career here. Was great, helped really get things off the ground. And then Matt Lindsay, who's now with Penn State, Phil Wall, who's up at Clarkson, and Carl Michelson, who's out in the USHL now, and certainly Sean Flanagan, who's with me right now, who played at St. Lawrence and is doing a great job for me this year. I mean, you can't get it done without the players, and you can't get the players without the assistants.
You can't make the chicken sell without the chicken.
That's right.
Now, you've had 13 years. Do you have visions of staying there? Do you have visions of remaining there? Do you have visions of moving on to a different program? You don't have to announce it this morning, but is that something in the back of your mind? I know sometimes coaches get the itch to do something else or somewhere else, or not that you would leave Hobart tomorrow, but with a 13-year realm, do you think about that at all? Is that something that comes into mind of opportunities down the road?
Sure. I'd be... I wouldn't be practicing what I preach when I'd say to our guys, you come through my door, I want you to put the bar up as high as you can and go after it. And that means with your academics, with your job aspirations. That means with your hockey. Sure. And no different than myself. When I took this program over, I did it much like I visioned what Bill Beanie, where I coached first with Bill Beanie at Middlebury College. That was a great initiation for me into it. And I looked at Hobart College. I looked at Geneva. My family's young. I was looking to go someplace to really do something with a program. And I don't have a timeline on it. If Boston calls, I'm gone. But there's sure you have to.
Yeah.
It's but. I also look at Bill Beanie, who's been pretty happy 20-some years at Middlebury. So, for me, it's I want to try and win a national championship here.
Yeah.
I want to keep having, the level of success with the players through here. I mean, we've had some guys achieve some highly respected academic honors, and they've gone on to do great things outside of hockey, and guys have gone over to continue with their hockey career. I'm pretty happy where I'm at.
That's right.
But even you can be happy where you're at, but you still should be trying to push yourself to another levels as well. But I'm not. I don't got one foot out the door, so to speak. But you try and do the best job of where you're at, and if something comes up that you should move for, then you should move for it.
Hey, listen, you need not go any further than Syracuse, New York. Doug Marrone. I love Syracuse, my alma mater. I'm a head coach. He got a couple of bowl bids at the Pinstripe the last couple of years or a few years, and I thought he was entrenched. Jim Senecropia, a graduate of Syracuse, and many viewers are graduates of Syracuse, thought Marrone would be there for a while. All of a sudden, Buffalo came calling, see ya. It's an opportunity for him to make his mark in the NFL. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out, because he's going to a program that needs a lot of help, and years without making a playoff and 8 years in a row with a losing record. So, if Douglas Marrone's looking for some challenge, he certainly got a challenge with a capital C. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Well, listen, we appreciate you taking time out. Now, as far as fans that may want to check out your program, you guys play your games at the Cooler up in Geneva. Yeah. That, of course, is a legendary facility. As far as checking out your schedule, they can go on the Hobart Hockey website.
Yep, and our last regular season home game is the 16th, which is our alumni weekend, and they've got some pretty good festivities planned for that, and it should be a great game. It's with Elmira College, who people ask who your rivals are in our league. It's everybody.
That's right.
But that'll be a great ending to the season there, the regular season anyways.
Well, listen, Mark, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and to coming down for the Weber on Sports Show. We appreciate it. It's nice meeting you, and we hope to have you back real soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Listen, we're going to stay on for a couple more minutes and just comment about and have Mark chime in if he'd like to. A couple comments about some other events that are taking place. Of course, I was kidding Mark about the Super Bowl. He was heading back. Of course, I referenced the fact that if you were looking at a 4-9 number on the famous boards around the area, you probably were counting your money with 20 seconds to go. But hold right there. Weird things have happened. Scott Trickler, one of our sponsors this morning from Lizard's Tailgater Lounge, said maybe the fix factor was in. The kid gets a safety with 4 seconds to go? And all of a sudden that 4-9 number went to 1-4. So to the people that had the 4-9 that was going to cash in all the big bucks, see you later. Somebody else took all the cash. So a pretty amazing finish that game. The Ray Lewis farewell, retired now. You had a feeling something was going to happen in that game. Then, of course, the power outage at the Dome. Mark, I don't know. I know you're a hockey guy, but I'll tell you something. That Super Bowl spends millions and millions, and the NFL spends millions of dollars preparing a site for the Super Bowl. I mean, they must have had 14,000 sheriffs, Homeland Security, watching the building, making sure there was nothing going on there. But I want to tell you, I would not want to be the director of operations in charge of lighting. I would not want to have that job, because you can imagine the embarrassment of a 42-minute delay last night in the biggest sporting event in the entire spectrum. When those lights went out, I lost it. I said, oh my, whoever's in charge of lighting in this facility at New Orleans, the Superdome, had to be just running scared. Sort of embarrassing. I mean, the NFL and, of course, sponsors. You worry about, we love to get sponsors on Weber on Sports. Our cost is a little less than $4 million for a 30-second spot. And, of course, CBS this morning is reporting they're going to have to give some refunds because it lost the continuity of the game, that 38-minute or 40-minute delay. So I thought that was kind of nice. By the way, I got to send out kudos to my good friend Mark. We pick on people on the show, too. Brad Jones and his wife Debbie wasn't there. But, Brad, we have a little get-together at our place every year. We call it the Weber Super Bowl. And Jimmy Cookoff, I noticed that, Jimmy, too. Good job, by the way. I saw that. But Brad was in charge. Mark, we make one of our couples that come to our place. We have 4 or 5 couples come over every year. We make one couple in charge of bringing the shrimp cocktail. And Brad Jones brought it Brad, a former mayor, too. You'd like to meet this guy. He's all that you ever thought you would ever want to meet. Well, Brad brought the shrimp, and we looked at the platter, and it was kind of small. He had a lot of it, Mark and Jimmy, but it was small in size. And we questioned Brad about where he got it from, and we'll keep the name of the business out of the show this morning. But it was okay. It was tasteful, but I like the large jumbo shrimp. You know what I mean? Are you a shrimp eater?
I love shrimp.
Wait, Jimmy, you like shrimp, Jim? I like the large ones, the real firm shrimp cocktail in the hot sauce. These were tasteful, but they lacked in size. And how small were the shrimp? Well, how small is the state of Rhode Island? You know what I mean? I'm sorry, Brad. We had to take a shot while we could. By the way, we had a lot of fun yesterday. I want to thank the Radfords and the Jones and the Becks for coming over, taking part, and my wife Mary did a great job with the pasta visual. So he did some of that yesterday. We had a lot of fun. By the way, we're sending out kudos to a bunch of people, and I got to send out one to my nephew who lives out in good old Phoenix, Josh Dockstader, formerly out of Geneva, New York. He is now an accredited head pro. He oversees the operation at the Trilogy Golf Course outside of Phoenix. An outstanding layout. I've had a chance to play and shoot my normal 106. A few years ago when they got married, he married the beautiful Katie. They just had a bouncing baby boy named Drew. And, of course, Josh doesn't have a lot of free time now changing diapers and certainly watching the little baby and also running a golf pro shop. But he went out yesterday and shot his career best, a 64. 9 birdies. You play golf, Mark?
I do.
You a good player?
I'm not that good, I can tell you that.
9 birdies, shot a 64, his best score ever. Amazing. 34-30. That's impressive. And that layout, I've played it before. Trust me, folks, it's it's not the site where they played the Phoenix Open yesterday, that pitch and putt golf course. That's an embarrassment, 27 under par. 64 for Josh Dockstader, my nephew. We send out our best to my buddy Josh. That's impressive. I don't think I've had 9 birdies in 35 years as a golfer. I don't think I have because I'm not a very good player. I got that loose grip. Jim always cracks up, but it's not a very good one. And the ball goes right, left. You never know where it's going. A lot of sand traps, a lot of water, a lot out of bounds. So
you get your money's worth.
Oh, do we? A lot of fun with that. Well, listen, we've had some fun this morning. We certainly hope that you've enjoyed it. Here on the Weber on Sports Show, we're going to surprise you next week, hopefully with another guest. We appreciate Steve Howcroft, the fantastic Midlakes wrestling coach, the first 7-8 minutes with us on the Weber Show. And, of course, Mark Taylor, having a chance to meet him for the first time, joining us here in the studio, as we say, on the couch. Mark, once again, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so thank you to all of our great sponsors to make this show possible. We'll surprise you next week with, who knows, maybe another special guest. If not, we'll ad-lib and pick on some people during the course of the show. Once again, everybody, thanks an awful lot for joining us on a Monday, February the 4th, 2013. That's a look at sports my way.